And sounds like staff's ready over there, ready to go, good to go, thanks. So welcome everybody to the audit committee of Sandag, Friday, September 9th, 2022, 12:30. Before we get started, I would like to ask our interpreter, Carlos Diaz, to introduce himself, and walk through how to access our interpretation service for today's meeting. Carlos.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Welcome. As was indicated, there is interpretation services being provided to and from Spanish. To use the service, all you need to do if you're on Zoom is to scroll down to the bottom of your Zoom screen. There you will find an interpretation icon. It looks like a little world, and you would select English as your language. If you are joining through a mobile app on a cell phone, tablet, or other mobile device, you would first press the three dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. If you are joining us today at Sandag in person and need interpretation into Spanish, please check out a headset from the receptionist on the 7th floor. The headset looks like a little iPod and comes with an earpiece which you can use to hear the meeting in Spanish. Simply hold the earpiece to your ear and the interpreter will come on automatically. Muy buenas tardes, está ofreciendo servicio de interpretación. Si nos acompaña vía Zoom, por favor desplácese a la parte inferior de la pantalla, donde aparecen sus controles. Ahí haga clic en el icono de interpretación, parece un globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, es decir, en celular, tableta, etc., presione primero los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Ahora, si nos acompaña en la sala de juntas, por favor diríjase a la recepción en el 7º piso y solicite un receptor. El receptor se parece a un pequeño iPod y puede utilizarse para escuchar la reunión en español. Simplemente sostenga el auricular junto a su oído y la interpretación comenzará automáticamente. Gracias and thank you. This concludes the announcement.
Thank you, Carlos. Now with that, why don't we all join me in the pledge? Ready again?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now go on to the regular agenda, or onto our agenda, and the first item is approval of the meeting minutes. Francesca, are there any public comments on the minutes?
We have no public comments on the minutes.
Do we have any board member comments on the minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Musgrave, second by Monson. Please vote. I believe we're using these things, right?
Yes.
Okay, using your hand puck, press number 1 for yes, number 2 for no, number 3 for abstain. It's,
Yeah, I've got her.
okay, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's faster.
Let the record reflect that that passed unanimously with those present, and also make sure we reflect that we have Councilmember Musgrove here instead of Mayor Vasquez. Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to public comments and member comments. Francesca, are there any public comments?
We have no public comments.
Do any board members have comments for the meeting? I will go ahead and give an update that, sorry, Bob, that we just got out of the full board meeting, and without much discussion and just general thanks, we were able to approve this committee's recommendation for the IPA compensation and performance evaluation for the year. So that was good news. And thanks again, Mary. And so that process is now done. Bob.
That's what I was gonna call.
Okay.
Chair Zito, I thought you did a fantastic job in presenting that, and congratulations, Mary. It's well deserved. So.
Great. With that, we move on to the agency report, and Ray.
Thank you, Chair Zito. Good afternoon, committee members. It's great to see everybody back after the break that we had. And just wanted to let you know that Sandag work continues full speed ahead. I'm sure that you saw in the news that the Air Resources Board had certified the 2021 regional plan and confirmed that it is compliant with state and federal guidelines, so that hundreds of millions of dollars can continue to flow to the region to help fund our transportation projects, things like our youth opportunity passes, the low sand rail realignment, Otay Mesa port of entry, and many, many more projects. Immediately following the board's action in December, staff began to work at evaluating what it would take to replace the regional road usage charge in the next plan. That work is still underway. But we need to make sure that we meet all applicable federal and state laws, including greenhouse gas emission and CEQA requirements. We're moving forward to continue working with the board on this update. And we were requested by the board of directors to agendize an item for September 23rd to discuss what options there are to expedite the work of taking the road usage charge out of the regional plan. Sandag received $300 million for the low sand realignment project near Del Mar. We talked about that was one of our bigger items at the board meeting. And I just wanted to say again how thankful we are to Pro Tem Atkins and all of those who partnered to help us secure that money. It's a very important project, and it's a lot of money coming from the state to really help make that happen. On August 22nd, we received a major milestone on another one of our priority projects, and that was Sandag and Caltrans breaking ground on Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. So after over a decade of working on that, this is finally becoming a reality where we're going to be able to put in this third border crossing. Sandag and Caltrans staff are finalizing the revenue sharing between Mexico and the United States, and there's commitment on both sides of the border to bring this plan forward for consideration in October. The draft revenue sharing agreement will be circulated to the board after today's meeting, and then staff will be doing briefings and looking forward to the comments that board has on that. The Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project, it really hinges on innovative high-tech strategies focused on using a dynamic tolling process, and Route State 11 would be a tolled route to help finance and design this project. If the board of directors approves its execution, then we're going to move closer with the financing and be able to sign an event. We'd have a signing event later this fall. Work on the airport connection to the Central Mobility Hub continues. We recently reconvened the Central Mobility Hub Committee Roundtable with a small group of stakeholders representing different community planning groups to update people on the downtown focus of the Central Mobility Hub connector. And yesterday we held a virtual public meeting to educate and answer questions from the public on the Central Mobility Hub project. And we look forward to bringing you a comprehensive update on that in October. So those are the things that have happened. In addition to that, the data science team launched the agency's first open data portal, where we are going to be able to push out to all of the jurisdictions within the region, all of the Sandag data that we collect at a jurisdictional level, including data from the Sustainable Development Goals initiative that the UN has put out. We started collecting that information, which is really going to allow us to compare our region to almost any other place on this planet and really understand whether or not the efforts that we're doing here are actually making a difference. And then we can also analyze what other areas are doing to see whether or not they're having any success moving the needle on some of these sustainable goal initiatives. So lastly, I just wanted to mention that we recently updated the language assistance plan, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. One item of clarification, I'm assuming the comprehensive update in the Central Mobility Hub will go to the board.
It'll go to the board. You guys
Yes.
want to hear about it?
Well,
We'll bring it over here too.
That's why I just want to be clear. If people want to hear about it, they should probably attend the board meeting as opposed to
Okay.
this meeting. Okay, thanks. Any public member comments on Ray's update?
We don't have any public comment.
Okay, great. Any board members wishing to make a comment?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
So the data analytic that you mentioned that you'll be sharing with different jurisdiction, is that a public, so the public can also have access?
It'll
to
be
that
public
data?
facing. So
Mhm.
right now, we launched it on the 6th as kind of a soft launch internally, so that we're beta testing it right now. We're adding more data to it. It'll be available to the public and to the jurisdictions. What's unique for this is that what we're really trying to do is to be able to have data that we can look across all jurisdictions and have comparable information. So if you want to look at poverty, for instance, in La Mesa, you can compare that to Vista, and it's using all the same data sources, for instance. And when we look at pollution levels or whatever else the indicator is, it's consistent across the whole region, so you can make comparisons. We're also collecting information on Baja California. So we're for the first time trying to include things that are happening south of the border. And so eventually our portal will have hopefully all the same type of data that's available in the US. That's whatever's available from Mexico, will also be publishing that. So yes, and it will be publicly available.
That's great. It's really impressive, actually. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for the hard work. of
Thank
getting
you.
it done.
Not to get too technical, we don't expect such demand on this data that it's gonna create server load problems and particularly create problems on ourselves.
I don't think so. I don't think so. And I don't think that it would be, I mean, it's in the cloud right now. So
Right.
if we had to, you know, get more
Servers,
servers, we could.
Yeah.
I don't think that we're gonna have that type of activity on it, because if it's anything similar to the other data we have different groups that would be researching a certain project or product or whatever, and they would be downloading certain data sets and then analyzing them on their own. And so we're just making it available, so.
Okay, thanks. We'll move on to agenda item 4, which is the update for the Office of the Independent Performance Auditor. Mary.
Good afternoon, everybody. This will be real quick. I definitely wanted to thank Chair Zito as well. You did do a really great report today, this morning. I appreciate it, and your kind words, your supportive words, not just to me, but you know, to my office and my staff, and I appreciate you recognizing them. I wanted to thank everybody, the subcommittees that put a lot of work into this as well, and brought it to the board in the first place, and also the board for accepting it and the recommendation. I appreciate them as well. And Hassan and Ray and Colleen for their support, because they have been supportive through this as well. So we can move past that. It's a good thing for another few months until we get started again. But also the timeliness of it is appreciated, and that's going to happen because Chair Zito and Stuart took some extra effort to make some processes and put those in place. So I appreciate that. I wanted to let my new staff kind of introduce themselves and give a little bit of their quick background. I was able to fill the positions we have, which I'm really happy about. I did it in a very unique way. So I'm sorry, Sandag, I took some of your staff. But you know, I thought, well, if I can't pull auditors in, I will make auditors that are in here. So I had worked with Crystal briefly and seen how sharp she was around contracts. And we are gonna, as you are aware, contracts is one of the higher areas of risk for Sandag. So I wanted to kind of ask Crystal, did you have interest in auditing maybe? And seeing that we had a need for continuous auditing and a QC around contracts. So she did have interest, and we were able to, with the support of Melissa, bring Crystal on as sort of a QC, continuous auditing around contracts and procurement areas. We were also able to still Doug, who I had worked with doing some data analytics and some analysis, and he's super sharp in those areas. And as you're aware, when you're a small team, having someone who's really good in data analytics is a super benefit. And so he also was like, auditing, I never thought of it, but yeah, he's going to do great. So I'm going to make auditors out of 2 really great people. And then our last, I was able to pull from the courts, and that is Chris. And so I will let them briefly introduce themselves and just where you guys came from within the organization and how long you've been at Sandag. Doug, you want to go first?
Sure, Doug DePete. I have been at Sandag 10 years now. I started off in the SR 125 toll road doing database work and all the data analytics down there for finance and all the different departments.
Crystal Carranza. I've been at Sandag for just over a year. I was in the contracts and procurement department, and prior to that, I came from the Port of San Diego, and I was in the contracts department there, and in HR.
Christopher Delgado. I actually previously worked at Sandag back in 2016 in the contracts and procurement department for about 1.5 years while I was finishing my studies, my accounting degree at San Diego State. Came from the courts, as Mary said, in the finance department, and I have some previous auditing experience with them, participating in like the yearly internal audits. So I'm glad to be part of the team.
I'm excited. So we have what we have available to us, we have filled now. And we have 2 interns that will be starting at the end of September. So I have those positions filled as well. So I'm really excited about that. As far as our update on our office, the contracts and procurement report is finished. Part 1, we have that ready to actually submit to management today. They'll have until September 30th to provide their management's response. And we can go back and forth with that. We've also helped them prepare a corrective action plan. If they want to use ours, they can, or they can create their own. And so we are working and already into part 2. Part 1, as I shared with you, is really looking internally at our controls and our processes and sort of the cause of what's going on. Part 2 is really looking externally more at the effect or impact as a result of the internal areas that need improvement and such. That report will come, part 1 will come to the audit committee October 14th and then move on to the board. And then I'm guesstimating that we will have part 2 completed and ready to come to the audit committee in January's meeting. So we're really excited about that. That's all for the update.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
And welcome to the new team members. Thank you for joining the team. And I'm personally very excited to have a fully, well, all of the positions filled. I won't say a fully staffed office because we're not there yet, but at least have all of the positions filled and looking forward to the great work that you'll be doing. And, you know, hoping that we all internalize that this is a very important function and we're very happy to have you and that our, you know, our goal collectively, both between the audit committee and the management team, should be to figure out what it takes to make the organization successful and a very well running organization over time. And hopefully you'll be able to contribute to that. So thank you. Francesca, do we have any public member comments on Mary's update? Are there any other board member comments? Bob.
You know, just a quick comment. I really appreciate you stepping in to this position of auditor. And having been an auditor for a number of years, that is an extremely important position. Chair Zito touched on it, especially in this organization. And you've got a good teacher in learning how to audit in Mary, as well as Lloyd, as well as Michael. But it is an important position. And it's not always going to be comfortable with the findings that you come up with, but that is your job as an auditor. And our job as an audit committee is to support you. So I congratulate you for taking that step to come into this position. That's all.
Thanks, Bob.
I just want to, echo what Chair Zito and Bob had just said. Welcome to the team, and really excited that now we have a very strong team. I know that there'll be a lot of great work coming out of this group, and as Bob said, the audit committee, I see that our role is to support you, right? So keep that in mind. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Just real quickly.
Yeah, sure, Ed.
Mike, we haven't met. Ed Musgrove and Lloyd, we did introduce, and quite honestly, I didn't know we had new employees because everything's been so two-dimensional. Unless you pull up the next screen, okay, I see a phone number, I don't see a face. It's fantastic to see this many people sitting right there, knowing that that's going to really bolster Mary's position and Mike and Lloyd, everybody, to get the work done. A lot of work needs to be done. It's a big organization. I've worked for a lot of public agencies, and if the agency is not focused on auditing kind of becomes one of those things that we have to go through every year or periodically. But if you don't check internally your operations, nobody ever tells you we need to work on this. You think everything's running smoothly. And it's not a bad thing to be told this needs to be corrected. It just needs to be corrected. So you'll find good things. You may find some things like Bob said that are a little maybe distasteful, but that's okay too. Just accurate report, back it up with data, submit it upstream. And you've done your job, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. With that, we can move on to item number 5 in our report section, our salaries and compensation audit. We will have two-part presentation, the first one by Melissa Fulfelt and the second part by Mary, and Melissa, take it away.
Thank you. And I have Rachel, our HR manager, co-presenting, so three of us to hear from today. Hey, and we, our intention is to keep the theme of good news going. So thank you for setting everything up for us this afternoon. But the report that Rachel and I are kicking off, and then I believe Mary will kind of do part B with us, relates back to one of the first audits that Mary and her team did, which was the salaries and compensation audit. And it was about 2 years ago that the board was contemplating the action plan that we had put together as a result of that audit. And today we're here to tell you that we're finished. I'm excited. Happy to certainly be at this place. And just to recap quickly, that action plan that we put together, 27 items that we've been working on for about 18 months now. So very comprehensive in nature and addressing, as I said, many of the recommendations that came through from the salaries and compensation audit. We've come to the audit committee as well as the board on multiple occasions. In fact, this is our 5th progress report that we've made. So we've come pretty much on a quarterly basis. There's been about a 6-month gap recently. But again, today, our 5th and final report on the salaries and compensation audit action plan. The body of work that was just completed, the last item in the action plan had to do with developing duty statements for all employees. It was certainly a big lift for us as an organization. And in fact, I've asked Rachel to join the presentation this afternoon. She was the project manager for that effort and really shepherded the creation of nearly 400 duty statements. So certainly something to be proud of. And I wanted her to talk about the work that she did. So you want to take it?
Sure. Again, my name is Rachel Nicolat. I'm the Human Resources Manager with Sandag. During the rollout of the duty statement project, we had excellent participation and support from directors, supervisors, and employees throughout the organization. The HR team provided support and created tools and resources for employees and their supervisors. We created a guide to assist with the preparation of the duty statements and a SharePoint site with resources for employees. The team also met with every department and hosted several working sessions to ensure employees understood the project and had all of their questions answered. In the end, all employees prepared a duty statement with their supervisor, and these were signed and saved in a SharePoint folder that all employees can access, which helps to support transparency. We also introduced mechanisms to ensure that new employees and those employees who've moved into new positions work with their supervisors to prepare a duty statement. We've also put practices in place so that duty statements are reviewed and updated on at least an annual basis. So duty statements have become a key element in the agency's performance management program, a tool that supervisors and employees can use to drive clarity around performance expectations, support the development of job-appropriate goals and objectives, and identify areas for professional growth and skill development. So I'd like to turn it back over to Melissa just to wrap up.
Excellent, thank you. So again, just the final item in our action plan was the preparation of those duty statements. I think as Rachel highlighted, it was certainly a collaborative effort, a team effort. And I think that that is what characterizes, I reflect back on the last 18 months and delivery of the action plan. I think those are some of the things that I really think about, and wanted to thank Andre and his team, have been great collaborators with us, as well as John and his team throughout this process, and certainly to Mary and your team. I know I've provided a lot of guidance along the way. I think one of the other items or points to acknowledge at this point, as I again have reflected back on all that's been accomplished through the action plan, I feel we can say that we have performed the work with a great amount of diligence, certainly have taken the opportunity to introduce positive and lasting change in the organization. So not just a check the box exercise that we could come to you and say, we're done. Really have implemented change and continue to build on the things that have been implemented that were initially driven by the action plan. They continue to be elements of our program that we build on and continue today. So with that, Rachel and I are here to answer any questions about our portion of the action plan. Chair Zito, I don't know if it goes back to you or to Mary for part B, but yeah.
Might have remote attendees. Why don't we go to Mary and then we'll take the questions.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So this step was pretty easy because it was only one and I had to actually participate in the process. So I can say just kudos to you guys. You were very diligent in this process. I can't believe you finished this part. I've done this before with other counties and cities and state, and it took at minimum 3 years to do it. That's why I was like, are you sure you don't need more time? So you really worked very hard at what you did, and you did it really well. The templates were very helpful. They were easy to follow. The guide packages were great. You had many meetings because I was in them, and a lot of back and forth and a lot of guidance physically that you provided in addition to your guides. And the duty statements are maintained and very transparent. They are not reflecting classifications. They are actually duty statements of what people are actually doing, even if they're in the same classification, which is really great. And it will bring accountability to both sides of the table, right? The employee is aware now, this is what you're accountable to do as you're here. It will help greatly with performance evaluations. And then the employer is also accountable to that employee, letting that employee know this is our expectations of you. So it's a great tool. And I really commend you guys for not just completing a really huge corrective action plan, because it was quite a task, but you did it and you did a great job at it. You were diligent. We did work jointly and you guys really took the ball and ran with it and did great work. And so congratulations on finishing the corrective action plan. I know it's a big lift off of you because it was a lot of tasks to do. So congratulations, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay. Francesca, or do we have any public member comments on item number 5?
We don't have any public comments on the item.
Are there board members that have comments or questions? I will go to Bob.
I have actually a question. It's a real simple question, and then I'd like to make a comment. My question is for me, the duty statement, is that like a employee responsibility or job responsibility for the employee? Is that kind of what that is? So it kind of spells out what the responsibilities of the employee for that particular.
That's correct.
Yeah, is that correct? Okay, okay. Secondly, having been a part of this committee when this report was first issued, and the significant amount of findings as well as recommendations that went into this, the audit plan that was put together. I will have to tell you, I was initially wondering what's going to happen here. I because it was significant, a significant amount of time was having to be put into that. I really commend Melissa, Rachel, your entire group, senior management here at Sandag, Mary and her group for collaborating with each other and working together to get this done. That's really what auditing and management should be doing, is working together, collaborating to implement these things and to make the organization better. And that's what's going to happen here. So thank you, Melissa and Rachel, for all your time put into this. And for Mary and Ray, you can pass this to Azan as well, because he had a part of this with his leadership. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Other comments or questions? I guess I have a question is, did you do one for board members? Just kidding. Relative to the discussion that happens today during the board. It might be useful.
Well, we'll take on any challenge.
Yeah, so I'll add my thanks. Appreciate working through the diligence and getting this done. It's important that not only if we do the audits, but that we actually address the issues that are found. Yeah, I truly appreciate the organization jumping in and working towards that as well. So thank you for that. Seeing no other comments, I believe this one requires, do we need a motion to pass it to the full board, or does it go to the full board? Okay. Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will move on to item number 6, which is matters to be communicated in accordance with auditing standards. And it looks like we have Catherine Lay, or Lai?
It's Lai, Catherine Lai.
Lai, thank you.
All right, well, terrific. Thank you for turning the time over. Oh, I'm sorry. Was somebody saying something?
I was going to introduce you.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi. Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Yan Ho, Sandag's finance manager. The independent certified public accounting firm Crow LLP will be performing the upcoming annual financial audit of Sandag, including the audit of Sandag's annual comprehensive financial report, the basic financial statements of the 4 component units, San Diego Regional Transportation Commission, Source Point, Arches, and the financial statements of the SR 125 toll road operations for the year ending June 30th, 2022. This audit also includes several other financial and compliance audits, such as the single audit, TDA audit, NTD AUP, and the Coronado Toll Revenue AUP, which Kathy will talk about in her presentation. As you know, the purpose of the financial audit is to provide reasonable assurance that Sandag's financial statements are accurate and are prepared in accordance with GAAP. Sandag's internal control over financial reporting is sound. The auditors will perform various audit procedures and conduct numerous testings over our financial data before they issue their audit opinions. Kathy is here on Zoom today to discuss the planned timing and the scope of the audit, as well as communicate matters to the audit committee in accordance with the statement of the auditing standard. And with that, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Yan. I appreciate it. And before I begin, again, my name is Kathy Lai. I'm a partner with Crow and the lead partner on this engagement. And with me today, I also have Jennifer Richards. She's another audit partner that works on another part of the scope of the respective audit. So we'll cover that in just a little bit. If you move forward to the next slide here, we just hope to cover, by reminder, what our engagement objectives, what we've been engaged to do for Sandag, all of the different required deliverables that at the conclusion of the audit you should expect to receive, our timeline, the planned scope, and then of course some certain required communications, and we'll certainly welcome questions throughout the presentation and then certainly after as well. So on the next slide here, again, it's just important to remind the audit committee as to what Crow has been engaged to do. We've been engaged to perform these financial statement audits where we're required to express an opinion on whether or not those financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP for short. Again, Sandag receives a lot of federal grants, as you're very well aware of. And so we also conduct our audit in accordance with government auditing standards. So there will be another report that we issue. And as always, with any audit, we are required under our auditing standards to obtain reasonable assurance that those financial statements are free of material misstatement. Those are our auditor responsibilities. It's also very important to note management's responsibilities in this process. Certainly, the financial statements are fully owned by management, as well as all of the internal controls related to those financial statements are the responsibility of management. So on the next few slides here, we'll cover the required deliverables that will be issued. So on the first couple, what the first is our financial statement audits. So we issue an independent auditor's report as well as that government auditing standards report in conjunction with Sandag's annual comprehensive financial report. We also have some standalone reports that are really just pulling out certain funds from the overall annual comprehensive financial report. The first one is the San Diego County Regional Transportation Commission or Commission. Again, for that report, we have both an independent auditor's report as well as a government auditing standards report. Then there is a requirement related to providing a certification on the commission's schedule of cash flows. And then the last standalone 3 audits are the South Bay Expressway as well as Argus and SourcePoint. Moving along to the next slide here, there are also compliance audits, as I mentioned. So the federal grant audit, otherwise known as the single audit or uniform guidance audit, will also be issued. And so for that, we will issue a compliance opinion. It's an independent auditor's report on compliance for each major federal program, and then also a report on internal controls over the respective compliance related to the scheduled expenditures of federal awards required by the uniform guidance. Included in the single audit report, you'll also see a schedule of findings and question costs. And so that is where we'll have a summary of whether or not we had any compliance or internal control findings that we needed to report. And then the last 2 on this slide here are just really agreed upon procedures that management has engaged us to do. One is in relation to the National Transit Database report, and the other is in relation to the Coronado Bridge toll revenues. So those are the financial statement audits and compliance audits. I'm going to pass it along to Jennifer Richards to talk about the TDA claimant audits on the next slide.
Sure, thanks, Kathy. So on the next slide here, we do have a number of additional deliverables that we issue related to the Transportation Development Act funds. And so just a reminder, the TDA funds come from the 0.25% of sales tax assessed in the region and has some specific audit requirements for each of these constituents. So Sandag administers that funding using formulas, and then also the County of San Diego has fiduciary responsibility receiving TDA from the state and dispersing it to claimants as well. So there's the audit of the county's local transportation fund, which is the bank for the TDA funds. And there's also this year 11 different cities that are recipients of that. In addition, full access and coordinated transportation or CTSA FACT, we also do an audit on that. So for all of these in total, we'll issue individual audit reports on the fund or the activities for those. And there'll also be just an in relation to report where we look at internal controls of our financial reporting as required under governmental auditing standards. So really not a change in scope from the prior year. I think maybe one city fell off because they didn't have funding this year, but otherwise business as usual on these. Kathy?
All right, thanks, Jennifer. So those are all of our required deliverables. Let's move on to the plan scope and as well as the timeline and required communications. So as you can see here, there's 4 different phases with respect to our audit. We have just concluded on our planning and our interim procedures. And so coming in October, we'll pick up on our year-end audit procedures on the financial and compliance audits. And then we'll come back to this committee as well as the board with the final reporting. On the next slide here, I just wanted to make sure that we reintroduced the concept of materiality. Again, our job is to determine whether or not those financial statements are materially correct, right? Free from material misstatement. And so in planning our audit, we do calculate what's called overall materiality. It's a quantitative calculation. It really summarizes the maximum aggregate amount of misstatements, which if detected and not corrected, would then in turn cause us to modify our opinion. So it is a quantitative calculation. However, it's very important to note that when we assess materiality, we do consider both quantitative as well as qualitative considerations. And at the conclusion of the audit, management's very familiar with this. We'll inform you of any individual unrecorded misstatements that are aggregated by us as a result of our audit testing. On the next slide here, as part of our planning, we do, under the auditing standards, have to consider any type of significant risks. You know, a significant risk is really just a risk of material misstatement, which in our professional judgment just requires special audit consideration. Under the auditing standards, there is a presumed risk of management override of internal controls. And so because there's a presumed risk, we do design some procedures typically around journal entries, but it could be in other audit areas as well, to test and to obtain an understanding relative to those internal controls, and to test the design and in certain cases, the operating effectiveness of those controls as well. On the next slide here, we'll go over the plan timing. As I mentioned, we've kind of wrapped up our planning and our interim audit procedures. And so we'll look forward to coming back on site and conducting our year-end audit procedures, which typically take place between the October and November timeframe. And then looking forward to issuance in December and coming right back after to complete the single audit, the federal grants audit, as well as those agreed upon procedures. And then for the Transportation Development Act recipient audits, because of the volume of those audits, that does take place typically from August all the way through December, and we'd come back again to this committee with those results as well. So moving along to our required communications, it's very important to us as auditors that you understand that we've got a two-way open line of communication between your auditors as Crow and the audit committee. And so, it's part of our risk assessment procedures. We really want to make sure that if there are any areas here listed on the screen, for example, weaknesses in internal controls, any known, alleged, or suspected fraud, any other matters warranting particular attention of the auditors, we would welcome you to contact us and let us know if you've got things on your mind related to that, to the extent that it pertains to the financial statement or compliance audits that we're going to be conducting. And with that, I'm happy to address any questions that you might have.
Thank you for that. We'll first go to see if there are any public member comments or questions.
We do not have any public comments on this item.
Okay, great, thank you. So board members, are there any comments or questions that we have on item number 6?
Just one quick question, please. I love the fact that there's going to be two-way dialogue on different levels. Will there be individual outreach to the members of the audit committee by Crow?
Yeah, typically we utilize this meeting as an introduction to the audit process, and we like to conduct inquiries sometimes with the chair, but we have our contact information through management, and we would encourage you to contact us if you wanted to have a separate individual meeting, particularly if it's anything sensitive related to the previous slide, if there are matters of concern to discuss with us prior to our final audit.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Seeing nobody else jumping in anxiously to make comments or questions, thanks for the presentation, very thorough. The screen went blank, not sure if that means they're still there, or if they had to go get their Friday beer.
Thank you. We're still here.
That's good, thanks.
Thank you.
And looking forward to there they are, they're back again. Looking forward to the outcome of the audits and the work that's going to get done.
Thank you.
With that, we're at the end of the regular agenda. Our next audit committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, October 14th at 12:30 p.m. And at this point, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Drive safe or be safe on your travels home today, wherever how that may happen with the rather interesting weather that we have at the moment.
Inundated once in a while.